What is up, NFL fans? Welcome back to another episode of The Way We See It. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Wesley Coleman. The draft is in the books. Wesley, what's up? How are you?
I'm good. Good draft. Happy with how it went. Went faster. What did I see something that a couple of years ago the first round took 6.5 hours, and this year it took less than 3. That's exciting.
Do you like that? Because some people hated it. Some people wanted the 6 hours. It felt like I do not. I just want to get the picks over with.
People
What's your
hated
take?
that. Yeah, I can't. I don't have time for those people.
Now, are you I think we talked about this last week, but I just want to say, are you someone that's like, I'm going to be on Twitter. I want the picks way
Yes.
before TV.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
We had a couple of arguments about it on our live stream again, but
I mean, we tell our live when we do our live stream for Steel Curtain Network, we say to everyone at the top of every single show and multiple times during the round, we are not waiting for the television to tell us who the
we're
pick
going to
is.
tell you when we know.
So if you don't like that, go somewhere else. And yet people still complain. But nonetheless, 3 days in the books, undrafted free agents are pretty much signed by all 32 NFL teams. And now people are assessing draft grades. Draft grades for players.
What better time to do it is before they've even signed to their contracts or shown up in an NFL camp.
Not under contract, haven't even seen a jersey yet, not even a rookie mini camp practice jersey, but let's assess grades. Now, first and foremost, let me get your take on the people that do grade drafts. What's your thoughts on that?
Clicks. Looking for clicks.
Of course.
Gotta get the clicks. I mean, nobody has any idea if a draft is going to be an A, B, C, D, or F right now. You might have an idea maybe halfway through the season. Like, you can make an idea when the rosters come out and the who's first and second string. But then we get into probably week 10 before you're like, you can feel really good about it. And then there's some of these you're not going to know for a couple years. If somebody took a quarterback in the first 3 rounds, we can't grade their draft probably for 3 years. Probably.
I agree with that. But let's back up and let me ask you another question. Because I believe there are some aspects of the draft process which can be graded, not the pick necessarily itself, or especially the player. Do you agree that there are some aspects of the draft, more from an organizational standpoint, that you can look at and kind of, if you wanted to give a grade, we could definitely criticize if things didn't go the way you planned?
Yeah, there's things that you can look at for draft strategy, some of it being for the entire 7 rounds, some of it just being for a specific pick. So the Saints have always been on RAS scores. They want to get the relative athletic score. They want to get athletes that can move. Some people are like, I need you to be from a big school playing against other big schools, and I need to see tape. I need to see tape of you playing against people that are potentially still going to be in the NFL. You've got teams that are less risk averse, and they're like, okay, if it's somebody that should have been a second round pick, but now they're available in the 5th because they blew out their ACL, I'm going to take them because if they get healthy, there's back to being a second round pick once they're playing for my team. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of also attitude. The Saints have been big the last 2 years of drafting people who, they stick with RAS score, but people that are captains, people that have been leaders on their team, people that are put out a positive message, that seem to be those kind of. And the Saints drafted people this year that were crying and excited and screaming, and people that were potentially seem to love what's going on versus playing it cool. What's your kind of take on? Do you have like a draft strategy you like to see?
Well, for me, I look at things. There's 2 terms that people use all the time, and even people that aren't like draftniks, like I'm not a draftnik. I'm not a college football fan, so I learned these players after the season leading up to the draft. People use 2 terms I can't stand. Number 1 is reach, and number 2 is value. And you see those just regurgitated. It's like people vomiting all over microphones. Wherever, if you have a oh, that's a reach, or oh boy, what great value, or that's not a value pick. Okay, so I think this lessens each day, each round throughout the process. But I'll give you an example with the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the 4th round of the NFL draft this year, the Steelers took Caden Weegan, return man out of Iowa. And everyone said, what a reach. Oh my gosh, he would have been available in the 5th round, maybe even in the 6th. Well, first and foremost, are you sure? How do you know? How do you know that some other team doesn't covet him in the 4th round? And so that's first and foremost, because you just don't know. Number 2, if you really like this player, don't wait. If you're concerned that someone else is going to value him in the 4th or even the 5th before you select again, you take the player. And third, someone like Caden Weegan, if he goes out there as a punt returner, kick returner, and takes 3 to the house this year, are you still going to be bitching about value and what round he was drafted? I don't think you will. And so for all of those reasons, like I hate some of the way that we, and this includes myself, react to the picks because we just don't know.
Yeah, and regardless of like positional value and all that kind of stuff, if you're going to draft somebody in the 4th or 5th round, a kick returner who touches the ball during an NFL football game this year 35 times is more valuable than your practice squad wide receiver who didn't make the team.
Yeah.
And that's in the 4th and 5th round. That's what you're doing. So
Yeah.
to say somebody drafted in the 5th should have waited till the 7th, stupid. Like
yeah, I mean, you're talking day 3 picks.
Right.
Now you
all
can
a
criticize day 1. You can criticize
And even day 2.
the Steelers on the phone with Makai Lemon before they were on the clock.
Are you excited about him, by the way? Like, is he going to complete what y'all need at wide receiver? Like, is Rodgers going to give the ball to him?
Let me say this. First, Aaron Rodgers don't know. 2, let me say this. I think the Steelers dodged a bullet.
Okay.
I think they did. I swear to you, maybe this is my black and gold brain. I do like the prospect that they got, and I don't think he's a ready day 1 tackle in the NFL. I do think he has a ton of potential, which is dangerous, but still, I really like Jeremy Bernard that they got in the 2nd round, though.
Here's what I wish we could do, and there was a way for you to, it's not be honest about it, but be able to tell me the truth, is if we were sitting here right now, 5 days later, after they had drafted Makai Lemon, what would you be saying about Makai? You'd be like, oh my God, we're not going to be able to dodge this bullet. You would not be saying that.
I would say, well, no, if I'm being honest, I would have said, hey, he's hopefully going to complete a wide receiver room that already has DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman Jr. He's strictly a slot receiver, and he should be able to get open, and he should be able to help this year. Jeremy Bernard, I'm saying the same thing with, but there was always a little bit of concern that Makai Lemon had some characteristics. I'm not talking about on-field physical traits. I'm talking about off-field, just their overall mindset that reminded me of George Pickens, and that scared the bejesus out of me.
Is that enough to say that you think that he would have been a reach at 21?
Who? Makai Lemon? I mean, shoot. Let's
using the word reach because you hate it.
I know. Yeah. Let's transition into our talk about round 1 before we get to some other things that we have on the docket. What were some of the biggest surprises for you in round 1? Or were there not many? Maybe you thought this kind of played out the way you thought it would.
Yeah, I would say a few surprises for sure. I think that first of all, starting off with the Titans taking Tate so early.
Yeah.
Definitely surprised me. I didn't see that happening. And it's maybe dumb because he got mocked there a lot. And so maybe we should have paid more attention to that. Some of the trades kind of became a surprise. I didn't know that Kansas City would move up so far. Like I thought they were going to be, probably moving up a few spots. That worked out.
Well, you're an LSU guy. Is he worth? Is that cornerback Delane? Is he worth that?
Yes.
Okay, so he's going to be it's going to be a good fit for them because after they got rid of obviously their, I'm forgetting his name right now, but the cornerback that they traded to the Rams. Yeah. So
I'll just say this just real quick on Mansour Delane. He's a true shutdown corner. He was targeted last year under 10% of the time, about 9.8% of the time. There's been 27 corners drafted in the 1st round since 2021. Pat Surtain and Sauce Gardner are the only 2 with a lower targeted rate. He is a shutdown corner. People don't throw to him because it doesn't work out for you. He's very, very good. He was being underrated this year because LSU was awful last year. He's a great football player.
Okay. Just a quick aside. Continue.
Yep.
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. I mean, obviously a few surprises and stuff like that. A few people that dropped. A couple of people that were.
Did you ever see Downs falling out of the top 10? I did not.
Yeah, it became pretty clear there. I don't know if out of the top 10. I think 11 was about as far as he was going to fall, but it became pretty clear in the last couple of weeks that he was going to be available to the Saints at 8. And if one of the other people that the Saints liked more at 8, then yeah, he was going to fall a couple more slots. I didn't see him getting taken at 9 or 10.
What about Ty Simpson to the Rams? Everyone's like, oh, it's so smart. That seemed like a GM pick. We'll just put it that way.
I don't
Sean
like.
McVay
I do
didn't.
not like it.
You
Um,
don't. Okay, go ahead.
Having said that, if Matthew Stafford plays 2 more years and one of those is a Rams Super Bowl, and then Ty Simpson is the starter 3 years from now, what a great pick.
Sure.
I mean, best pick in the draft.
Yeah.
if he is the actual Rams starter 3 years from now or 4 years, whatever that is.
The long-term plan, if Ty Simpson is that guy, makes a ton of sense.
I don't see
because
it. I'm not a Simpson guy. If it works out, it's really smart.
But at the same time, when you look at this, you're like, they also are a team that most would say has a Super Bowl ready roster. How do you not take a player who could come in and help you right now? And I guess the question
How
is,
do you
unless
not draft Mekhi Lemon right there? I think he would have been awesome there.
Yeah, and why don't you unless they thought the Jets were going to move up or Arizona was going to come up and try and take Ty Simpson?
Yeah.
That's pretty early. I never thought Ty Simpson would go that early.
I could have seen him going in the teens somewhere. I didn't think the Rams would do that right there at 13. But we'll see.
Any other surprises for you?
I mean, there's back and forth. I mean, people that surprised with I did say that Jadarian Price, that both Notre Dame running backs would get taken in the first. I was right on that. Keelan Rutledge, who I really liked a lot. I didn't think he'd be a first rounder.
Yeah.
But there's nothing mostly.
How about 8 first-round trades?
Crazy.
8. I don't know if that's an NFL record. I didn't look it up. I should have, but it doubled the number from last year. Last year there were 4 and there were 8, and it was all in the back half. I actually tracked this information. Man, it was crazy. After, I think, pick 20, when Philadelphia moved up with Dallas, which, by the way, an interdivision trade like that just makes me want to puke. But still, you have, after 20, just a crazy number of trades. Do you think this speaks more to the draft class, or do you see it more as just people targeted since players that they wanted and they're going to go up and get them no matter what?
I think that there was some of that, but also just in coupled in that conversation, and I predicted last week that there wasn't going to be a lot of 2027 firsts and seconds traded. That it wasn't future picks that people were moving for them. There was moving picks this year, and it definitely wasn't stuff in the first 2 rounds next year. People stayed away from that. I think Atlanta made a huge mistake that got everybody on notice about what that looked like and what not to do. Hurt the Colts too by thinking that they were going to be a deep playoff team, and now they're giving away a pick in the early teens. So it's I think maybe teams are realizing those picks are important. There's no more F them picks. They was moving around this year for this year's picks.
All right, let's go to our next topic. What is the timeline, in your opinion, for when you can see if both a draft class and drafted players are labeled as good? I mean, we just kind of bemoan the grading process. It's a clickbait thing. But at what stage, how long does it take you to be able to say, okay, this draft class as a whole maybe was subpar or great? And also individual players, what's your take there?
Well, and it's going to be different. This is a terrible non-answer, but so I would like to say, I just was saying earlier, whoever makes the opening roster, if you're first or second string, you're depending on where you're drafted, like that's smart. That's good. You're going to get on the field. So rookies getting on the field actually doesn't happen as much as people think. Right. Like a rookie getting 30% of snaps at a position doesn't happen very much. So those kind of things. And then you might say, like, middle of the season, you're like, okay, here's actually where they're learning. They've gotten the bumps and bruises and all. Having said that, if on day 1 of the season last year, or halfway through the season, I rated the Saints draft, it would have been okay because they spent a second-round pick on a quarterback, Tyler Shuck, who hadn't played a snap. He didn't win the starting position coming out of camp, and he hadn't gotten on the field even though the team was playing really bad. Well, we wait till the end of the year, and everybody has a really different view of the Saints draft and Tyler Shuck at the 42nd pick. They won the award for the best draft at the end of the season, the best draft class. So it looks a lot different, and they would not have won that halfway through. It wouldn't have even been in contention for winning it halfway through the season. So I think a year probably makes sense when you're doing your evaluations on what do we need to do now that the season's over. If you're looking at a guy and goes, yeah, he was okay, but we really need to draft another safety.
Yeah.
That's maybe not a great draft then. It's cool that he got on the field and all, but if you're still looking at it as a position of need after 1 year, I think that's a good time to look at it.
I think too that even those late round picks that are role players, if you want to really take a long-term view, how many are you signing to second contracts?
That's a big one.
How many are you keeping? So let me give you an example. In 2022, it was Kevin Colbert of the Pittsburgh Steelers' final draft. He was retiring. They gave him a draft. Hey, this is your last draft, Kevin. I don't know why they did that, but they did. And so here we are in 2026. Guess how many of those players are still in the organization? Zero. Not one player earned a second contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're talking about Kenny Pickett in round 1. You're talking about George Pickens in round 2. I could rattle off the entire class. They're all gone. And so now you look at it and say, if we're evaluating that, that's awful. That is horrible. Now you can talk about the changing of a GM to the next GM, and you could talk about head coaching changes and stuff like that. Even those role players that are special teams guys, if they're good enough and they were a valuable pick because of that reason, if they earn a second contract, that tells me something.
Yep.
Yeah, that they played well enough to stay in the organization.
Now, but what if you draft too well, you can't keep all your guys because then it becomes
and that's true.
So
yeah,
we've seen that happen too. Sometimes drafting too good makes it really difficult to keep them all. I mean, the Saints lost Trey Hendrickson coming out of the best draft class I've ever seen in the NFL. Now, some of that was misevaluations. They actually didn't think he was going to end up being that good. They thought that he benefited from the rest of the defensive line being good. They kind of screwed that up, but they also lost him because they couldn't ever afford it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You sometimes, especially a high profile player at a high profile position, you don't have any players still on the roster after 4 years. That is a damning statement. We'll just put it that way. Yep. All right, let's take a look back before we take a look forward. You found a mock draft from a year ago. I'm guessing this is a way too early 2026 mock draft.
I found 2 different ones that I was looking at. Yeah,
and we wanted to see how accurate were they. Now, this is before all the players that were expected to go into the league probably stayed in college. Yep. But I'm going to let you run with this. What do you got?
So both of them had Caleb Downs 3rd overall.
Okay.
Both of them had the same first two people in different order, but they had Arch Manning and Caden Proctor 1 and 2, or 2 and 1.
Yeah.
So Arch didn't get taken. Both of them had Garrett Nussmeier 4th or 5th.
Oh my gosh.
And, one of them had Cade Klubnik 4th overall with Garrett Nussmeier 5th. The other one that had Nussmeier 4th had Drew Alar 5th overall.
Okay.
Things that didn't happen. One of them had Reuben Bain 16th overall to the Steelers, so that's kind of he ended up there. They expected LSU to have a good year having Garrett Nussmeier go, and they had Aaron Anderson, the wide receiver, 19th overall. I don't know if he got drafted. They both had Sam Levitt in their drafts, who is now transferred to LSU after being injured last year. A lot of names that there's some that are right, but there's a lot of people who didn't get picked for sure.
Mendoza anywhere on those lists?
Not at all in either one of them.
Think about that as a cautionary tale to everyone out there listening, that when you look at these now 2027 way too early mock drafts, that a guy that wasn't even listed in those 2026 early mock drafts ended up winning the Heisman Trophy, a national championship, and went 1st overall.
The one that I told you had Drew Alar going 5th overall. The other one had him going 14th overall to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh.
Both of them had Jeremiah Love in the mid-teens, kind of stuff like that. But the big thing that comes out is that one of them had the Rams taking Lenoris Sellers 26th overall, which good. By the way, your guy Jennings Dunker was a potential first-round pick in this to the 49ers. So a lot more quarterbacks, which we had talked about that a year ago. You had Nussmeier, Alar, Klubnik, Arch Manning as guys that were they were all going to go top 5, and it was just like which order did teams prefer them in, and it didn't work out that way at all.
So what when you look back, do you see more that's like, oh, they got this player in the first round. He didn't go, he wasn't slotted where he was supposed to, but were you impressed or were you thinking, man, they're way off? What was your take when you read that?
I think it just shows that on a lot of things we don't know what we're talking about. So I mean, LT Overton, the edge from Alabama, was a big like name for being a first round pick a year ago. I don't know. Was he drafted in 4th or 5th round?
It was day 3. I know that.
Something like that. I mean, he was one that fell a long way. I mean, there's obviously some big names that are set here that had already done the work in 2 years, and we knew after their 3rd year all they had to do was stay healthy, and they were going to progress there. A lot of these guys are mocked on their potential growth and what might come out. And some of them like just didn't see it. Kristen Miller, the defensive lineman that the Saints drafted late in the draft, was projected to go 23rd overall in this. So that feels good. I mean, but that means he didn't reach some of his potential this year. Didn't put up the numbers that they thought. But it's interesting. Also, the team success matters. There's not a single Indiana person on any of these. Well, Indiana had some people get taken, and they looked good. So
it is interesting, and I think that ultimately, and this is another deep. We could do another podcast on this topic. Is how NIL has impacted all this. It used to be obvious. Oh, this guy's gotten eligibility. He's entering the draft. Why? He wants to get paid. He wants to strike while the iron's hot. Now with NIL, they're making more money there than they are there on their rookie salary in the NFL. But I will say that I do feel like, and I'll get your take here on this, I think it's shifting because if you looked at, everyone thought that this quarterback class was going to be amazing.
The one.
You just mentioned Drew Aller, you mentioned Klubnik, you mentioned Nussmeier. They were all supposed to be ridiculously highly ranked first round draft
even
picks.
Levitt and Lenore Sellers, who back in college.
Yeah. So now you have Aller goes in the 3rd. Carson Beck goes in the 3rd. Yes, you have Ty Simpson who comes out of nowhere and is entered on these stuff. I think some quarterbacks in the college might say, I know that the money's good, but if I'm coming off a decent year, if I'm looking to have a career in the NFL, going might not be a bad decision.
If we go back a year, if Garrett Nussmeier would have come out in the 2025 draft, he would have been probably taken where Tyler Shough was.
Right. 2nd round.
Yeah. And maybe he would have been in the conversation for, the Giants trading up for Jackson Dart. He was in that conversation. It was whether him or Dart was number 2 was the conversation last year. So I mean, he would have been taken before Shough by everybody. So, and now he's going 7th round. If you have to weigh all those things, and then you got Quinn Ewers, who from all reports was offered about $10 million or over $5 million guaranteed to go play at University of Miami last year. And instead came out and, got drafted by Miami in the
5th round. I think he's a 5th rounder. It's crazy. And injuries happen too. Like Drew Aller gets hurt last year.
Yep.
And so because of that injury, and he didn't play well prior to the injury, man, your stock drops. And now you're a late day 2 pick in the 3rd round. I think that there is going to be a balancing act with some of these prospects on when they come out and why they make the decision that they do. But like I said, that's a discussion for another time. Let's do our fan segment. You had to be pretty happy with the Saints draft, right?
Super happy with the Saints draft.
How many total players did they take?
Why are you going to ask me that?
Because you're a Saints fan? I don't know.
That's not one of the things I was prepared to answer. I think it was 6.
Oh, only okay. I mean, the Steelers ended up with 10. They had 12 picks, and they traded
eight people.
8. Yeah. Okay, and you're good with what rattle off for those that don't know the day 1 and day 2 picks.
So just to answer that real quick, like Yahoo was really big on like actually being picky about how their grades are. Like a lot of the grading was all A's and B's and like a couple of weird ones. Yahoo only gave 4 teams A's. The Giants, Bucks, Titans, and Saints were the 4 that they gave A's to. So I can say that I was very, very happy with the way that worked out. But we got Jordan Tyson in the 1st round, Kristen Miller, the defensive tackle out of Georgia that I mentioned in the 2nd, Oscar Delp, tight end out of Georgia in the 3rd, Jeremiah Wright, a guard, Bryce Lance, brother of Trey Lance, but big fast receiver. In the 4th, Lorenzo Styles of Ohio State in the 5th, Barian Brown from LSU in the 6th, and TJ Hall, a cornerback from Iowa in the 7th. I'm
That's pretty good.
very happy with the way it worked. The Saints needed to do something else at cornerback and an edge. We traded a 5th-round pick for an edge out of from the Raiders. So that Tyree Wilson, who was drafted 7th overall a few years ago. So in 2023, just hasn't reached his potential. But I like everything we did. It just we definitely turned around our wide receiver room, which we needed to do by taking 3 wide receivers in this draft. So we've transformed that. I'm very happy with a strong draft. I'll tell you. What about you? What's your overall feeling of the Steelers? Y'all took 10 people.
We had 12. They had 12 total picks, and with some trades, they ended up with 10 players.
10. So that,
yeah. Day one was a gut punch, round one. The whole story, and it wasn't so much the player, as I talked about earlier in the show. It was the optics of it. It looked horrible. It just pained.
I believe your response to me was WTF.
Yeah, I mean, so day one and two, a lot of people were coming at me like, Jeff, do your homework. Like, how do you not know this Maxi Honator guys? Like, because I didn't think they would ever take a tackle in round one. Because honestly, this tells me Broderick Jones's neck injury is way worse than we were let on. And the whole report by Schefter that he had a setback is not, Omar Khan sits there in his pre-draft press conference and goes, it's not true. You don't take a tackle in round one if Broderick Jones is even close to healthy. It just doesn't make sense.
But if Broderick Jones isn't going to be healthy, why are you on the phone with Mekhi Lemon?
Yeah.
That's where I was confused. I was like, I agreed with you. I went right to the Jones's neck, right?
Yep.
I was like, that went right to that. But I was like, but you have to address it if he's not healthy. So it was just weird.
It was very odd, and the optics, and that is a part of the optics, were really awful. And so, nonetheless, the more you learn about this, they call him IMAX because he's a giant of a guy. He hasn't played a lot of football, but man, does he have a ton of potential as an athlete. Very good out of his stance. He needs to put on some weight. But okay, so after that, I've had to digest that. We'll put it that way. But round two, they got aggressive and moved up and got Jeremy Bernard, who I really like out of Alabama. Yep. He was a player I coveted throughout the process because I had a feeling that Jordan Tyson wasn't going to be there, obviously, goes 8 to the Saints. I didn't think that Mekhi Lemon would be there at 21 either. And so they get him in the 2nd round, and the 3rd round is kind of a mixed bag. You got Drew Aller, which I think that Carson Beck going with the first pick on round 3 possibly scared the Steelers if they wanted to take Aller maybe in the later rounds, thinking, okay, is a run on these quarterbacks that are the 2nd tier going to happen now? And so they take Aller in their first 3rd round pick. Dalen Everett seems like a project cornerback out of Georgia. I do love Jennings Dunker, though.
I do too.
I think he's a good pick. I think he's a good selection. I think he has the chance to play right away in the Steelers system at guard. And I think he's position flexible enough that if they needed him to play tackle due to injuries and stuff like that, he could flex out there. Other than that, the picks, they didn't do the value stuff. They didn't do we're taking best player available. They went with, we like this guy and we're taking him. So 4th round, Caden Weegan. He's a return man, maybe a fast twitch slot guy in certain packages. We're taking him. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, Riley Nowakowski, the Indiana flex. He's going to take Connor Hayward's role as the tight end / fullback special teamer.
He's already gone.
What's that? Connor
Hayward's already gone. So you have
yes, he's in Vegas. So they take a no-name Gabriel Rubio in the 6th round out of Notre Dame, who was hurt almost all of last year. People were digging up tape saying this guy's got something if he stay healthy, but it's a 6th round pick. And then Robert Spears Jennings, Oklahoma. Again, you're talking special teams guy. But then Eli Heidenreich.
Cool moment in the draft.
It was a cool moment. And a lot of people said, oh, it's a PR stunt. This guy's got some game. He was the
7th round pick, so who cares?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's a flyer. He was Navy's entire offense.
So being that Drew Aller went to Penn State, so it's obviously probably some overlap between Steelers fans and some Penn State fans. Not everybody, but there's some.
Right.
how are Penn State fans that are Steelers fans feeling about this? So they're like, thank goodness he got injured last year to where we could get him in the third, or they're like, what the hell is this team doing?
Most Penn State fans, we have some on our network that are huge Nittany Lion fans, and they said, listen, Aller's got all the physical tools that you would want. He's got
Right.
the size, he's got mobility, enough mobility. He has the arm strength out the freaking wazoo, but his in between his ears is an issue.
Yep.
His footwork sucks. Where he holds the ball when it's right, there's a lot of physical basics that he needs to master. But they all said the same thing, and I've also read this amongst other pundits, not just Penn State fans, is that the system that they had under James Franklin did him no favors.
Sure.
That I mean, you're watching red zone plays where they're running 4 verticals in the red zone. Well, you're not helping people out when you're drawing up plays like that. So it's a project. It's a project pick. Mike McCarthy is a quarterback guy. We'll see what he can do.
I think my question would have been if Drew Allar hits all the points and learns all the things in the next year that you want him to learn, a year from now, I still don't think I see him beating out Will Howard. That's what I don't see. I don't know if maybe the best version of him 3 or 4 years from now is competing somewhere. But I like Will. I actually liked Will Howard. He didn't deserve to go in the first or anything like that. But I like Will Howard as a guy that can learn for a couple years and actually be a starter. I think I like Will Howard a year ago better than I like Drew Allar this year. I just thought that was, and Pittsburgh, for where they're at with a little bit older team, questions at quarterback, obviously. But if Aaron Rodgers comes back, this is a team that needs to be competitive this year. Like, he would be coming back for them to try to win and make the playoffs. I thought the draft was weird for a team with an aged veteran quarterback that is only coming back to make a playoff run. That's the only reason. I thought this draft was weird for a team with that.
You're right, outside of the fact that they bolstered the line, which they needed to do.
Yeah.
The Dunker pick, Jennings Dunker, and even the IMAX selection, Ihana Chor in the first round, gives them a crap ton of options on that line. And Troy Fautanu, who's the right tackle, could be flexing to left if they feel like that's the best option. He played left tackle at Washington when he was there. They have options now, and they have more offensive weapons. So you get Michael Pittman Jr., you have DK Metcalf. Now you put in Jeremy Bernard. And then you kind of, if you were able to even turn Weegan as a 4th-round pick into some flex option, they still have Roman Wilson. I think that Aaron Rodgers, if he comes back, and I say if because he has not signed a contract as of this being recorded, he is going to have an offense that is going to be better suited, not just for him, but for any veteran quarterback to come in and actually be able to move the football. Whereas last year, he had DK Metcalf and then who? Yep. He had Kenneth Gainwell out of the backfield. That's exactly what the offense was a year ago. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and we'll have a chance to talk about all this stuff and really dive in and break this stuff down. But let's finish this up with a little teaser for next week. Let's talk next week about 2027 first-round projected players.
Why would we not? It's going to be accurate. I bet we can name the top 5.
We can be as accurate as these mock drafts that you read.
I think that Arch Manning's name is going to be in it again.
Probably. But and he might stay at Texas. Who knows? But what's coming up on the Dome Patrol podcast?
This is going to be a boring next couple of months.
That's when you break it all down, man. This is when you really dive into these players.
Yeah, we're gonna probably be boring for a few. No, you can find us on X at Dome Patrol PCast. You can find us on Dome Patrol Podcast on all your streaming platforms. You can find me on X at Wesley13. I'll talk to you about any sports. We can come and give dap up Cooper Flagg for his Rookie of the Year win. That was much deserved and not controversial at all. Jeff, where can we find you and your Steelers breakdown, and where will you be breaking the Aaron Rodgers news when it breaks?
We'll be doing that at Steel Curtain Network, wherever you get your podcast, as well as steelcurtainnetwork.com. If you want to check out my individual Twitter handle, it's at jhartman, HARTMAN _PIT. Been a good show, Wesley. Enjoyed it. We'll talk next week. Take it easy.